Have you ever looked back at something you lost and thought it was the end, only to realize later that it was the beginning? Sometimes, the very things we cling to are the chains that keep us from rising. This is the old familiar voice of reason, reminding you that life has a rhythm, a quiet order, if only we'd learn to listen. And today we'll talk about something each of us has faced: loss. And the truth is simple yet profound: not everything lost was meant to be kept. So often we mourn what slips through our fingers. We see loss as failure, as punishment, or as proof that fortune has turned her back on us. But, my friend, think for a moment how many times in your life has something left you, only to be replaced by something better. How often has the closed door led you to the right one? We are creatures of habit. We hold on to people, possessions, and even old versions of ourselves, believing they must stay forever. But nature teaches us differently. The tree lets go of its leaves each autumn, not in sadness but in preparation for new life. The river does not cling to the water it carries, it releases it, making room for what's to come. And so it is with us. When something leaves your life, it is not always tragedy. Sometimes it is providence. The job you didn't get, the friendship that faded, the opportunity that vanished, these may not have been meant to remain. They may have only served a chapter, not the whole story. Here is the timeless principle to remember: what belongs to you cannot be taken, and what leaves you was never yours to keep. This isn't an excuse to live carelessly, but rather an invitation to live wisely, to release the grip of fear, to stop clutching yesterday and instead open your hands to tomorrow. Now, how do we apply this principle in daily living? First, practice acceptance. Do not spend your energy fighting what is already gone. Second, find the lesson. Each loss carries with it wisdom that no book can teach. Third, redirect your focus toward the opportunities still within your reach, the goals still waiting for your effort. And finally, nurture gratitude, for gratitude has the power to transform loss into fuel for growth. Remember, we cannot step into the future with our arms full of the past. Something must be released before something greater can be received. So here is your call to action today. Look at your life. Identify one thing you've been holding on to, a regret, a fear, a failed plan that no longer serves you, and let it go. Release it and step boldly toward the life you were meant to build. Loss is not always defeat, it can be a doorway to growth. When we first experience loss, it often feels like the ground beneath us has given way. Whether it is the loss of a dream, an opportunity, a relationship, or even a familiar way of life, the initial sting carries with it a heavy weight that convinces us we've been diminished. But loss is not always a subtraction. Many times it is a hidden form of addition, a reshaping of who we are and what we are capable of becoming. The human story is filled with moments where great progress was born not from triumph, but from what appeared to be failure. History and personal experience alike remind us that the most profound lessons are often learned when something we once valued is taken away. The pain of loss forces us to look inward in ways comfort never does. When everything is going smoothly, we have little reason to question our direction, our purpose, or our deeper calling. But when we lose something, suddenly the surface breaks, and we are confronted with deeper truths about ourselves. We begin to realize that our identity cannot be tied solely to what we have or what we do, because those things can vanish. Loss strips away illusions and compels us to discover the unshakable parts of ourselves, the values and strengths that no circumstance can remove. In many cases, what we lose clears the path for something greater. A failed business venture might spark the creativity that leads to an entirely new and more successful pursuit. The end of a relationship may reveal strengths we didn't know we had, or free us to meet someone who truly aligns with our soul. Even the loss of security can drive us to develop resourcefulness and resilience that become lifelong assets. At first, we mourn the closed door, not realizing it was never the right one to begin with. Only later do we see how loss redirected us to where we were meant to be. Growth is rarely comfortable, and loss is one of its greatest teachers. It demands that we release control, accept what is beyond our power, and focus on what remains in our hands. This shift creates wisdom, humility, and compassion. When we have lost, we understand others who have lost. When we rebuild, we gain a confidence that can never be faked. Loss teaches patience, reminding us that what feels like an ending may actually be preparation. Every person who has grown into greatness has encountered loss along the way. The difference lies not in avoiding it, but in choosing how to respond to it. If you see loss as final, it becomes a prison. If you see loss as transition, it becomes a doorway. And when you walk through that doorway with courage, you find that what was taken from you has given birth to something far more enduring within you. What leaves your life may be clearing space for something better. At first glance, This idea can seem difficult to accept. We grow attached to the things and people that become part of our story, and when they depart, it feels as though something essential has been stolen from us. But if we look deeper, we often discover that what left was never meant to occupy our future, only our past. Life has a way of pruning away what no longer serves our growth, creating the space we need for something greater to take root. Without that space, we might never be able to receive the blessings waiting just beyond the horizon. Consider the way a gardener tends to a tree. To the untrained eye, pruning might appear destructive. Branches are cut away, leaves are stripped, and the tree looks diminished. Yet, in time, the pruning reveals its purpose: new growth, stronger limbs, richer fruit. Life works in much the same way. When relationships fade, opportunities dissolve, or plans unravel. It may be life's gentle pruning. The space that opens up is not emptiness, it is possibility, a place for something better to grow. Often, we cling to what is familiar because it gives us a sense of security, even when it no longer aligns with who we are becoming. A job that feels safe but drains our spirit, a friendship that no longer supports our growth, or a habit that keeps us stagnant. These things may leave us, and while the loss can feel unsettling, their absence may be the very thing that allows us to step into a greater version of ourselves. In the moment, it may feel like deprivation, but in truth, it is preparation. The universe does not remove without reason. It clears to make room for what we need most, even if we do not yet see it. Think of times in your past when you lost something and later realized it was a blessing in disguise. Perhaps the rejection from one opportunity became the path to a far better one. Perhaps the end of one chapter opened a door you had never considered. With distance and perspective, what once felt like loss becomes the very event that led to your growth. This pattern repeats itself over and over, reminding us that what leaves is not always a curse but often the soil in which our future is planted. The challenge lies in trust. To accept that what departs may not be punishment but preparation requires faith in a larger order. It means loosening the grip of control, allowing life to flow as it must, and believing that empty space is not a void but a vessel waiting to be filled. When we trust this process, loss transforms into an act of grace, and emptiness becomes an invitation. What leaves your life may indeed be clearing space for something better, and when that better finally arrives, you will understand that what departed had to go so that your future could fully unfold. Not everything you lose was ever meant to stay. Life is a constant flow of arrivals and departures, a stream of moments, people, and opportunities that pass through our hands like water. Some of these remain with us for years, shaping who we are, while others appear briefly and then vanish. At times we feel broken by what slips away, clinging to the belief that it should have lasted forever. Yet when we pause to reflect, we often see that what departed was never intended to be permanent. It played its role, served its purpose, and then made way for the next chapter of our journey. We are often taught to equate loss with failure, as though the disappearance of something valuable diminishes our worth. But life does not measure value by duration. A moment can last only a second and still carry wisdom that shapes us for decades. A friendship may fade, but while it lasted, it taught us how to love, how to forgive, or how to see ourselves more clearly. An opportunity may close, but in the pursuit of it, we may have discovered skills, strengths, and passions we did not know we possessed. Not everything you lose was ever meant to stay, because some experiences are designed not as destinations, but as teachers along the way. Clinging too tightly to what has already moved on is like trying to hold the tide in place. The ocean ebbs and flows, and so does life. To resist this rhythm is to exhaust ourselves, to fight a battle we can never win. Freedom comes when we understand that impermanence is not an enemy, but a natural part of existence. Just as seasons shift and leaves fall, so too must certain things in our lives. The falling away is not punishment, it is nature's reminder that growth requires change, and change often requires letting go. There is a hidden kindness in this truth. If everything remained, our lives would be overcrowded, heavy with attachments that no longer serve us. Imagine trying to walk forward while dragging every piece of your past behind you. Progress would be impossible. The things that leave us often clear a path we could not clear for ourselves. They remove what no longer belongs so that we may have the space to step into what does. What looks like an ending may actually be the quiet beginning of something greater. To live wisely is to hold life with open hands, to receive fully what comes and to release gracefully what goes. This does not mean we stop valuing people, dreams, or experiences. Rather, it means we stop demanding they last forever. Their worth is not diminished by their impermanence. Every loss carves room for a new gain. Every departure sets the stage for a new arrival. Not everything you lose was ever meant to stay, and when you learn to accept this truth, You free yourself to walk forward without fear, ready to meet whatever waits on the road ahead. Holding on too tightly can prevent progress. There is a natural rhythm to life, a forward movement that calls us toward growth and transformation, yet so often we resist it by clutching the familiar. We grip old habits, old identities, and old comforts, believing they give us safety, when in truth they keep us stagnant. To hold on too tightly is to chain ourselves to the past, to anchor our potential to what was, instead of allowing ourselves to step into what could be. Progress requires room to breathe, and when our hands are clenched, there is no space to receive anything new. We often mistake control for security. We imagine that if we hold on to what we know, we can avoid the discomfort of change. But growth lives in discomfort, in the uncertain and the unfamiliar. The tree does not remain a seed forever, nor does the caterpillar resist the cocoon for fear of losing what it knows. Nature reveals to us that transformation always requires release. When we cling, we deny ourselves the chance to evolve. We trap ourselves in a smaller version of who we are meant to become. This principle applies to every area of life. In relationships, holding too tightly can suffocate connection. True love requires freedom, not control. In careers, clinging to a position that no longer challenges us can rob us of the opportunity to discover our greater calling. Even in our personal growth, holding on to outdated beliefs about who we are can blind us to the truth of who we might be. Progress is not found in preservation but in movement, in the courage to let go of what no longer serves us so that we can make space for what does. There is a subtle power in loosening our grip. When we release the need to control every outcome, we allow life to flow as it should. We create space for serendipity, for opportunities we could not have planned, for growth we could not have scripted. The very act of letting go signals trust. Trust in ourselves in the process, and in the unfolding of something greater than we can yet see. Progress rarely comes in straight lines. It often appears disguised as detours and endings. But when our hands are open, we can welcome these as steps along the path instead of obstacles blocking it. The truth is, what we cling to most tightly is often what keeps us small. Fear whispers that we will not survive without it, yet time and again we find that when we let go, we rise. The comfort zone may feel safe, but it is not fertile. To grow, we must be willing to loosen our grip, to allow the old to fall away so the new can take its place. Holding on too tightly can prevent progress, but letting go, though it feels uncertain, is the very act that sets us free to move forward into the life waiting for us. True security comes from within, not from possessions or people. Many spend their lives chasing stability in the form of wealth, status, or relationships, believing that these things will finally provide lasting safety. Yet time and experience reveal a sobering truth: possessions can vanish, people can leave, and circumstances can shift in an instant. If our sense of security is built solely on what lies outside of us, then our foundation is fragile, vulnerable to every change that life inevitably brings. Real security, the kind that cannot be shaken, is born within. It is the unyielding trust in our own ability to adapt, endure, and thrive no matter what happens around us. Wealth may provide comfort, but it cannot guarantee peace of mind. A person may build vast fortunes only to live in constant fear of losing them. Relationships, though beautiful and meaningful, cannot be the sole anchor of our well-being, for even the closest bonds are subject to change. Jobs end, markets fluctuate, people disappoint, but the strength we carry inside is the one resource that cannot be stripped from us. The individual who develops resilience, self-confidence, and clarity of purpose discovers a form of security that does not rise and fall with circumstance. True security is cultivated through self-mastery. It begins when we learn to manage our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. When a person knows that they can face challenges with patience, think clearly under pressure, and persist when obstacles appear, they no longer fear the uncertainty of tomorrow. They understand that while they cannot control everything outside of them, they can always control their response. This realization transforms anxiety into calm, doubt into confidence, and fear into faith. It is also built through self-reliance. When you trust in your ability to create value, to learn new skills, and to rebuild when necessary, you are never truly at risk of losing everything. Circumstances may strip away possessions or change the landscape of your life, but with self-reliance, you carry the means to start again. That is why so many who lose fortunes often rebuild them. Their wealth was never just in their bank account, it was in their mindset, their habits, and their inner resourcefulness. Another layer of inner security comes from living in alignment with values. A person who knows who they are, what they stand for, and what matters most to them is not easily swayed by external storms. They may face setbacks, but they do not lose themselves in the process. Their compass is internal, not dictated by the shifting approval of others or the fleeting nature of possessions. This alignment creates a steadiness that material things alone can never provide. The paradox of life is that when you stop seeking security outside of yourself and begin to build it within, you become more free. You no longer cling desperately to things or people out of fear of loss. You engage with them from a place of choice, not dependency. And in that freedom, you discover that true security is not found in what you hold, but in who you are. Every ending carries the seed of a new beginning. Life is a series of chapters, and each one closes to make room for the next. Yet, when we face an ending, whether it is the conclusion of a relationship, the loss of a job, or the fading of a dream, we often see only the loss and not the quiet potential hidden within it. Endings can feel final, heavy, and unmovable, but if we look closely, they are rarely walls, they are doorways. Within every ending lies the spark of something waiting to emerge, a new direction that could not have revealed itself until the old one was complete. We tend to fear endings because they carry uncertainty. The known, no matter how unsatisfying, feels safer than the unknown. But just as winter appears to be the death of nature when in truth it is preparation for spring, endings in our lives prepare the soil for growth that is not yet visible. A career that closes may be the catalyst for discovering a true passion. A friendship that fades may open space for deeper, more authentic connections. A dream that dissolves may redirect us toward a path that aligns more fully with our gifts. The ending is not destruction, it is transition, a turning of the page that invites us to write something new. If we reflect honestly on the course of our lives, we can see this pattern repeated. The opportunities we once mourned losing often made room for something better to arrive. What seemed like failure revealed itself as redirection. What looked like loss became the very condition that allowed growth to occur. Endings force us to confront the illusion of permanence and remind us that nothing in life is fixed. This impermanence is not meant to punish us, but to keep us moving forward, to prevent us from becoming trapped in what no longer serves our evolution. The seed of a new beginning is always small, often invisible at first. It may appear as a subtle idea, a faint stirring of possibility, or the quiet sense that something new is calling. If we are consumed with clinging to the ending, we may overlook this seed altogether. But when we allow ourselves to grieve what is gone, and then gently shift our gaze toward the horizon, we begin to notice the signs of new life emerging. Just as the darkest night gives way to dawn, every ending prepares the way for renewal. To embrace this truth requires trust. Trust in the unfolding of life, trust in our own resilience, and trust that even when we cannot yet see the future, it is already being formed within the ending itself. What feels like the close of a story is often just the beginning of another, one we could not have imagined without the turning of the page. Every ending carries the seed of a new beginning, and those who recognize this live not in fear of change, but in expectation of growth. The mind must be trained to see loss as redirection. When something slips away from us, our natural reaction is to grieve, resist, and wonder why it happened. We tend to see loss as failure or as a punishment, forgetting that life rarely takes without also guiding. Loss is not always the end of the road. More often, it is a signpost pointing us toward a different path we might never have chosen on our own. The challenge lies not in the event itself, but in how our mind interprets it. With the right perspective, what looks like defeat can become a turning point that leads us closer to where we are truly meant to go. The mind, however, does not naturally lean toward this interpretation. It is wired to cling to the familiar and to fear the unknown. This is why loss feels so jarring. It disrupts our sense of stability and control. But if we can discipline the mind to recognize that loss often carries hidden purpose, we transform our experience of it. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" we begin to ask, "Where is this leading me?" That shift in thinking turns despair into curiosity and pain into possibility. Training the mind in this way requires practice. It begins with awareness, catching ourselves when we spiral into the belief that loss has ruined us. The truth is that we have endured loss before and grown stronger because of it. Each time we remind ourselves of this, the mind learns that loss is not destruction but redirection. From there, we cultivate gratitude not for the pain itself, but for the wisdom and growth it will ultimately yield. Gratitude turns the mind from focusing solely on what is gone to recognizing what is still available and what may yet come. History and personal stories alike reveal this principle. Countless people have been redirected by loss into their greatest callings. The failed business venture that cleared the way for innovation, the closed door that forced someone to discover a new opportunity, the relationship that ended so a deeper, truer connection could one day begin. At the moment, each of these felt devastating, but with time the redirection became clear. Our lives are often moved forward by losses we did not want but later came to understand. The mind must also be trained in patience, for redirection is rarely obvious immediately. The seed of a new path may take time to sprout, and during that waiting, doubt tries to creep in. This is why discipline is essential. We remind ourselves daily that loss is not life working against us, but life guiding us. We build resilience by trusting the process even when we cannot yet see the full picture. To see loss as redirection is to live with faith rather than fear, to believe that what leaves us was never meant to confine us, and that what lies ahead is shaped by the very space that loss has cleared. In this way, the mind becomes an ally instead of an enemy, turning every ending into the first step of a new beginning. Gratitude transforms loss into wisdom. When something we value is taken from us, the first emotion that rises is often pain. We feel the sting of absence, the ache of what once was, and the temptation is strong to dwell on what has been taken. Yet if we allow ourselves to remain in that place, the loss becomes nothing more than a wound we carry. Gratitude, however, changes the entire meaning of the experience. Instead of focusing solely on what is gone, gratitude turns our attention to what remains, to what we have learned, and to how the experience has shaped us. Loss without gratitude is bitterness, but loss with gratitude is wisdom. Gratitude softens the edges of grief. It does not erase the hurt, but it gives it context. When a relationship ends, gratitude allows us to honor the moments of joy it brought, rather than only mourning its absence. When a dream fades, gratitude reminds us of the skills, the growth, and the insights gained in the pursuit. Gratitude does not deny the reality of loss. It simply refuses to let the loss define the entire story. It reminds us that every experience, even painful ones, carries gifts if we are willing to see them. When we practice gratitude in times of loss, we train the mind to move beyond resentment. Instead of asking why something happened to us, we begin to ask what it has given us. That shift in perspective transforms loss from being a thief to being a teacher. The lessons we carry from loss, patience, resilience, compassion, humility, are often the very qualities that prepare us for greater chapters ahead. Gratitude allows us to extract meaning from what might otherwise feel meaningless, turning suffering into substance and hardship into strength. It is often said that wisdom comes with age, but wisdom truly comes with reflection. Two people can experience the same loss, yet one becomes hardened by it while the other becomes deepened. The difference is gratitude. Gratitude is the bridge between pain and understanding, between endings and new beginnings. By choosing to focus on what the loss has given rather than only what it has taken, we grow more aware of life's impermanence and more appreciative of its fleeting beauty. That awareness is the root of wisdom. Gratitude also empowers us to let go. When we appreciate the role something played in our lives, we no longer need to cling to it. We can release it with peace, knowing it contributed to who we are today. This letting go creates space for new opportunities to enter, and it keeps us from becoming prisoners of the past. Gratitude transforms loss into a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block, a reminder that life is not about holding on forever, but about growing through every experience. Loss is inevitable, but what we do with it is our choice. Gratitude ensures that loss does not diminish us but enriches us. It turns endings into lessons and pain into perspective, and in that transformation, we discover the quiet power of wisdom. Self-growth requires letting go of what no longer serves you. Every stage of life demands that we shed parts of ourselves that once felt essential but have now become barriers to progress. The beliefs, habits, relationships, and even identities that once gave us comfort may eventually turn into weight that slows our journey. Growth is not merely about adding more knowledge, more achievements, or more experiences. It is also about releasing the unnecessary, the outdated, and the limiting. Just as a tree must let go of its leaves in autumn to conserve strength for spring, so too must we release what no longer nourishes our becoming. Often what holds us back is not failure but familiarity. We cling to routines, thoughts, and attachments simply because they feel safe. The human mind seeks comfort in what it knows, even when what it knows is no longer aligned with who we are becoming. This is why growth can feel painful. It asks us to step away from the comfort zone, to release control, and to trust in the unknown. But only by loosening our grip on the past can we create space for the future. Holding on too tightly keeps us trapped in cycles we have already outgrown, while letting go frees us to expand into new possibilities. Letting go is not rejection, it is recognition. It is the acknowledgement that certain habits once served us but now limit us, that certain relationships once lifted us but now drain us, and that certain ways of thinking once protected us but now confine us. To grow is to evolve, and evolution requires change. Just as a snake sheds its skin and a butterfly leaves the cocoon, we too must surrender the old forms that no longer fit who we are. This process is not loss but liberation, a conscious decision to carry forward only what aligns with the person we are becoming. The act of letting go also strengthens resilience. When we choose release over resistance, we cultivate trust in ourselves and in the flow of life. We begin to see that we do not need to cling desperately to what was, because we have the ability to adapt, rebuild, and create anew. This realization deepens our confidence, reminding us that our true strength does not lie in what we hold but in who we are. With every layer we release, we uncover more authenticity, more clarity, and more freedom to grow without constraint. Self-growth is a process of refinement, a continual shedding of what is no longer aligned with our higher path. It is not easy, because it requires courage to face the unknown and faith to believe that what we release will be replaced by something greater. Yet, the moment we choose to let go of what no longer serves us, we step into a wider horizon of possibility. The lighter we travel, the further we can go, and in that release we discover the essence of true growth. Freedom often begins the moment you release what was never meant to be kept. Much of the weight we carry in life comes not from what is truly ours, but from what we cling to out of fear, habit, or illusion. We hold on to relationships that have already run their course, to possessions that add no real value, to identities that no longer reflect who we are, and to regrets that cannot be changed. This attachment creates heaviness, a burden that slows our steps and dims our vision. Yet the instant we allow ourselves to release what was never meant to remain, we feel a lightness, a sense of liberation that cannot be manufactured by anything external. True freedom is not simply the absence of restriction, but the presence of clarity and choice. When we free ourselves from what no longer belongs in our lives, we make room for authenticity. We are no longer bound by the expectations of others, the ghosts of past mistakes, or the illusions of permanence. Letting go is not weakness but strength, for it takes courage to unclench the fist and allow what has already left us in spirit to leave us in form. The moment we do, we discover that freedom was not something outside waiting to be given to us. It was something inside waiting to be uncovered. Releasing what was never meant to be kept requires trust. The mind resists letting go because it fears emptiness, as though without what we hold we will have nothing. But emptiness is not a void. It is a vessel waiting to be filled with something more aligned with who we are. A closed chapter makes space for a new story. A cleared field prepares the ground for new seeds. Without release, there can be no renewal. Without surrender, there can be no transformation. Think of the times in life when you have finally let go, perhaps of a toxic relationship, a long-held resentment, or an unfulfilled dream that weighed on your spirit. At first, the release may have felt painful, but soon after you may have felt relief, peace, and a sense of possibility. What you thought was loss revealed itself as freedom, because what you carried was never meant to be yours forever. In hindsight, you saw clearly that it had only been occupying the space meant for something greater. Freedom is not about having everything but about needing less, about recognizing what truly belongs to you and releasing the rest without regret. When you let go of what was never meant to stay, you reclaim your energy, your focus, and your direction. You stop fighting against the natural rhythm of life and begin to move with it. In that flow, you discover strength you never knew you had and opportunities you never thought possible. Freedom often begins the moment you release what was never meant to be kept, for only then are you light enough to walk boldly into the future that awaits. Life has been reminding us in every way that not everything is meant to stay, that loss is not always defeat, and that what leaves often clears the way for something greater. To cling to the past is to anchor ourselves to what no longer serves us, but to release with courage is to discover freedom, wisdom, and growth. When we train the mind to see loss as redirection, when we embrace gratitude as the lens through which we view endings, and when we trust that every closing carries the seed of a beginning, we rise above fear and step into resilience. True security is never found in possessions or people, but in the strength we carry within. Progress demands that we loosen our grip, that we let go of what no longer belongs, and that we allow space for life to bring us closer to who we are meant to become. Freedom is born the moment we accept that what was never ours to keep was never meant to hold us back. In letting go, we do not lose, we grow, and in growth we uncover the life waiting patiently for us to claim it.